All right, folks, what do you say we go ahead and get started then? Does that sound good? Sound cool? Okay. Um, I know that y'all don't really know me all that well. I am Trevor Smith. I teach at Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College. I've taught there for a few years now, and I am a history professor. So I am not an economist. I'm not a official computer programmer or anything else, but I have been a pretty big nerd when it comes to all things internet and computer and everything else for a pretty good while. And I have just been fascinated with blockchain technology really for several years now. I actually started getting into it in 2013. About 3 years ago, I concluded that I didn't really like the news that was being put out there. I didn't think that it was written well enough, and I didn't think that there was enough real information. And so I figured, hey, I'm a pretty good writer, so why not try to do it myself? And I ended up writing for some cryptocurrency and blockchain news sites. Most recently, I wrote for one called Bitcoinist, which is actually a pretty popular website. It's one of the top in the space, but I haven't written for them since March. They did some shifting around when COVID really got bad, and I haven't been with them since. I don't know if I'll go back or not. I probably will at some point. And one more time, just wave to make sure everybody can hear me. Okay, very cool. All right. So this is a presentation that I gave last March during a tech conference that we were having here in Mississippi. It was given to other college instructors who are also interested in technology, so that's kind of the angle that we have on this. But I think it does a pretty good job of explaining what blockchain is, what it's all about, and why I think we ought to be really excited about it. This will probably take anywhere from, I don't know, 45 minutes or so. We can certainly have questions after that, whatever you want to do. I'm very open-minded. So we've all heard about it. Let me get to this. The question I guess we would have to ask ourselves first is what exactly is blockchain, and why is it so darn important? Well, in very simple terms, blockchain is a new-ish protocol for storing and verifying data. Now, I'm going somewhere with this. What blockchain does is it enables information to be stored and verified very securely in a manner that is decentralized. And of course, we underline decentralized. That's the key. That's what matters here. The first and by far most popular blockchain platform is Bitcoin. It's what we've all heard of. It's what everybody is so excited about. It's what is suddenly becoming so valuable and so many more people are interested in getting. But I think that before you want to have anything to do with it, you kind of need to understand what it is and how does it work. I'm assuming you would agree. So where does it come from? Well, first of all, Bitcoin was created by a guy named Satoshi Nakamoto, although that is a pseudonym. Nobody knows who he really is. In 2008, in response to the financial crisis and the bank bailout. He wasn't very happy with how the central government, notably the U.S. government, responded to the banks being too big to fail and getting huge amounts of money in these bailouts. He didn't like it. He didn't think that it was fair to the average American. So he created this new platform. And it is designed to be a decentralized currency. It is not controlled by any central authority like the Federal Reserve or something like that. Bitcoin is borderless. By design, it cannot realistically be blocked. It cannot realistically be banned. It cannot be prevented from going from one country to the next, etc. And Bitcoin is kept secure by cryptography, not by trust. And we will get into what that really means later on. But understand, everything about what makes Bitcoin so successful is the cryptography of the platform. In very simple terms, working properly, a Bitcoin wallet is a Swiss bank account in your pocket. I don't know a better way to put it than that. That's what it is. It's a Swiss bank in your pocket. So how does blockchain work? What's with it? Well, let's start with traditional data management. Information is kept in centralized systems, and each system's ledger is altered when data is changed. For example, and again, We've got the college reference here. Student data is kept, in a big computer on campus somewhere. Maybe the land deeds to property you own is kept at the county courthouse, obviously on file there. Maybe at your bank, right? You have a bank account. You know that the bank keeps a big computer and it keeps track of who owes what and who has what. And when you log into online banking, you can see that ledger. We all know how that works, but understand each of those ledgers are centralized. In a university or college, for example, we have data that is entered by some people, and this could be employee data, it could be student records, it could be attendance, payroll, whatever. And who enters this data? Well, obviously lots of people do. Secretaries could enter it, right? Faculty could enter it. You get the idea. And obviously other people then can go back into that central database and access it. Now, with a blockchain, and let me just interrupt here. Can you see all of the words? Am I up above, or is my picture blocking the words? You can see all the words? Okay, very cool. I wasn't sure. Okay, with a blockchain, the information is actually kept by many computers. The ledger is not in one place. The ledger is in a lot of places, and these are called nodes. Okay, each computer holding the ledger is a node, and each node holds the entire ledger. Nodes, of course, all have to agree whenever a change takes place. And so obviously changing the ledger requires what we call consensus. They have to agree that the change is valid. And in a proper blockchain, in a blockchain as designed by Satoshi, anyone can run a node. Anybody could set up a Bitcoin node right now. If you wanted to set one up, you could with your own computer, etc. It's very easy to do. And what this means, of course, is that there is no central computer that could be hacked, altered, corrupted, etc. In order to alter the ledger, it would require an awful lot more work, as we will see. So how is data managed? Well, it's managed in what we call blocks. We have a block number one of the ledger, and different types of data can be put on that block. And then a few minutes later, 10 minutes in the case of Bitcoin, a second block is created and it revises the data from the first block. And then 10 minutes later, another block is created that revises the data even more. 10 minutes later, another block is created, and each block can be traced back to the blocks before it. So all of the data is kept on the ledger. Obviously, the data is recorded in blocks. In Bitcoin, a new block is created every 10 minutes. And because each of these blocks is linked to the other one, it is a blockchain. You get where that term comes from. And again, a proper blockchain as designed with Bitcoin you can trace the data all the way back to block number one. It is 100% auditable, and it is unchangeable. You cannot change the ledger once data has been written to the block. I will get into some vulnerabilities if we'd like, but we're going to just, for the sake of argument right now, assume that it's not going to happen. And again, each new block is added to the ledger. Now, there's another point I do want to make. Blocks are actually created by computers that are known as miners, okay? And miners all are trying, in the case of Bitcoin, to solve a very complex cryptographic puzzle, if you will, and the one that solves it gets to create the block, and the cryptographic puzzle gets harder as more computers get into the mining game. And if you are a miner and you have been selected to create the next block, you get a reward of 6.25 Bitcoins. And currently 6.25 Bitcoins is worth $118,000. And so lots of computers are currently competing for the privilege of creating the next block. And the fact that so many computers are putting so much power into it, it makes it really, really difficult for a malicious actor to come in and try to take over the ledger himself. As of right now, and this has been the case for quite a few years, gigantic computing farms located in many spots around the world are operating 24/7, doing nothing but trying to solve that puzzle and form the next block. It is just an astronomical amount of computing power that is going into mining Bitcoin. More electricity than Ireland, as I mentioned here, is actually being used to mine Bitcoin as we speak. And so in order to somehow take this over and corrupt the system, you would have to actually control 51% of that, which is, I don't need to tell you, going to be extremely difficult to do. So here's what you might be saying to yourself. I sort of get it, but what's the big deal here? Why is Bitcoin so cool? I kind of, it sort of makes sense. Well, just know this, okay? There is a gigantic computer file called the ledger, and it keeps growing as more information is added to it, and many computers keep a copy. This arrangement means, of course, that the ledger cannot be hacked. It cannot be altered by a bad guy. The blockchain itself cannot realistically be shut down or censored because nodes are operating all around the world by anybody who chooses to operate one. And this creates a situation, it creates a platform, a protocol, where there is a single source of true information that is fully decentralized. That's the key. There is a single source of truth that is distributed and can't be realistically changed. It is revolutionary. On the one hand, a big fancy computer college system, again, the computer reference, that is centralized. A hacker could hack it, obviously. Bad actors, malicious employees, whatever, could come in and change it if they chose to. There is a possibility that what we have in that computer may not be right. We can't 100% trust it. On the other hand, with a blockchain, knowing that the ledger is distributed among many different computers, and that term is used frequently, distributed ledger technology, the data is secure. It ain't changing. It can't be hacked. It can't be altered. We can trust it. And I do want to emphasize one more time, the entire ledger is held on every single node. This is not a situation where the ledger is parceled up into little pieces. And that's what some people think blockchain is. But the whole ledger is kept on every node. And they all have to agree in what we call consensus. So let's see how blockchain could perhaps change finance. So let's start with Bitcoin. Let's take a look at this. Simple little example. We have block number 1, and we'll have 3 people. We'll have Mary, we'll have Brian, we'll have Trevor, right? And we'll say we each have 100 Bitcoins. Well, what will happen is we're going to send them to each other. Mary might send 50 to Brian. She might send 25 to Trevor. And so when the second block is created, we have a different set of numbers. Mary has fewer, Brian has more, Trevor has more. And you can trace that transaction back to the first block so you know what happened there. Well, we're going to keep going. I send some to Brian. I send some to Mary, whatever. So the next block number 3, Mary now has 75. Brian has 175. Trevor has 50, and so on. And each new block will contain the revised data and the entire ledger. So again, you can audit this all the way back to the beginning, and realistically speaking, it simply will not change. With blockchain, anyone can send cryptocurrency to anyone else anywhere on Earth. There are no banks. There are no governments that can regulate it. You hold your cryptocurrency. Nobody else can take it from you because of the cryptographic nature of what are called your private keys. Again, it's the cryptography that keeps it safe. It can't be shut down. It can't realistically be traced back to you unless you use it. I use anonymous here. It's actually pseudonymous because the minute you use it, if you're identified with a particular account, then maybe they would. But the truth of the matter is it's quasi-anonymous. Bitcoin is a Swiss bank in your pocket. I'll go back to that. Now, that's what it is. It's a Swiss bank in your pocket. So here might be something that you're thinking about. If something is valuable, it has to be limited in supply, right? What's stopping the Bitcoin people from just printing off a bazillion Bitcoins, which would obviously devalue it? Well, obviously, Satoshi thought about that. There are currently 18.5 million Bitcoins, give or take. And as we mentioned, 6.25 are created every 10 minutes. The creation rate actually changes every 4 years, and it slows down. And 21 million are all that will ever exist. The program is what it is. It cannot be altered. And so we can't have them come in and just print a whole bunch more. And if we're going to be honest, there are no Bitcoin people. It isn't a central protocol. There is no customer support. There is no company behind it. It's decentralized. It's just out there now. So if you're going to try to change this, if you were going to try to rewrite the ledger and change how many Bitcoins Mary sent to Trevor or Brian, it would take an astronomically large amount of computing power. Now, it can happen. There is such a thing called a 51% attack, but the chances of it happening pretty slim. And I'm not getting into the mining pools and things like that, which some people might be familiar with, which actually might create a little bit more of a challenge. But I'm keeping this simple here. You just have to understand currently there's enough computing power to, suck the electricity out of Ireland. And we're talking we're talking about that kind of power needed to try to somehow rewrite the Bitcoin ledger. So it is incredibly secure. Let's look at an actual more realistic use case. And let's start with a fellow, we're going to call him Carlos. Okay. And let's say he's a migrant worker, right? I don't know. He works at in California somewhere. And we know how this works. These guys, they make cash. And let's say every week or whatever, he makes, say, $200, and we know what he does with it. He goes to Western Union and he sends it back to his family back home, right? Well, everybody knows what Western Union does when these people show up and want to send their money, right? Western Union takes a giant chunk and his family gets considerably less. And I'm sure you would agree, old Carlos is getting ripped off. Okay, there's just probably no other way to put it. And this is the kind of person who doesn't need to have this happen to him and his family. Well, if he chooses to use Bitcoin, he has his Bitcoin in his Bitcoin wallet. Remember, it is borderless. And so all he has to do is transfer it to his family's wallet back home. Heck, in fact, he could use the same wallet as his family. And that's it. They get their money. It moved across the border. We didn't have to have anything to do with Western Union. We didn't have to have anything with these rip-off fees that they charge. There was no conversion. He has Bitcoin. His family at home has Bitcoin. It is borderless. It was private, right? There was no name associated with that Bitcoin wallet. Obviously extremely secure, obviously extremely fast. No bank was involved. Decentralized. You can understand why this might be appealing to someone like that. Now, it is worth noting, Bitcoin doesn't get sent completely for free. There are fees involved with it that have to do with paying the miners to keep mining, but also to help determine which transactions actually go into the next block. I'm not getting into the mempool and all of that. But yes, there is a fee known as a miner's fee that is attached to each transaction. This fee can vary. Right now, the fees are kind of high, and that's one of Bitcoin's shortcomings, which we can discuss later. But you don't send Bitcoin completely for free. There is a fee associated with it. So then the big question comes up. I get it, cool technology, but this is a bunch of computer code. This isn't money. Okay, I know money. I know dollar bills. I know other currency too. This isn't money. This isn't the real stuff. Well, all types of businesses are actually now starting to accept it. It is a limited supply that everybody knows will remain limited. And so it's starting to be taken. It's starting to take off. Obviously lots of businesses now are more than happy to take it as payment. And so, if Carlos were to have Bitcoin and send it to his family at home, they might just decide not even to convert it into their local fiat currency. They might just decide to keep it in their Bitcoin wallet and use it at a local store that takes Bitcoin, right? Why not, right? In the next few years, thousands of businesses, and since we're talking about Carlos, we'll say in South America, we don't even know how many are going to start accepting it, but we do know that it's an awful lot. Now, how can he get it? Again, this guy's a migrant worker. He's going to get paid in dollars, right? Excuse me here. Anything with value can actually be used as a currency. And I'll get into really what gives blockchain its value in a little bit. But how could Carlos actually get his Bitcoin? He got paid in dollars, and dollars are, kind of the thing. He didn't get paid in Bitcoin. Well, one easy way is for him just go to a crypto ATM and convert it. Okay, they're kind of popping up everywhere. You put your money in, it sends the Bitcoin to your wallet, and there you go, you got your Bitcoin. And again, I gave this presentation along the Gulf Coast. There are dozens of Bitcoin ATMs right now in between Mobile and New Orleans. There's many of them, super easy to do. You tend to pay a little bit of a higher fee. We'll get into other ways to get Bitcoin later, but it's quite simple to do. Now, of course, it's also possible that Carlos just gets paid in it. Right? If enough of these folks like him go to their employers and say, quiero Bitcoin, if these employers want the best workers, if these employers want to keep their workers happy, these employers are going to start going along with it. Obviously, at the end of the day, the whole point is to have enough workers show up. And so more and more are starting to figure out that this is a very legitimate alternative to the whole Western Union MoneyGram route. the thing I can assure you do not like to have to do. Also, it's also worth noting point of sale systems. Businesses, want to know how they can accept it, right? If you are a mom and pop or whatever, well, all types of new technology is, of course, being developed that will enable businesses to accept Bitcoin and do with it what the business owner wants. And in a lot of cases, obviously, they still need to turn it back into their local fiat. This is rapidly changing technology and rapidly developing technology. It's worth noting, and I'm just talking about international remissions here, somewhere in the neighborhood of $500 billion is estimated to be sent home by expat workers. And we're talking about people, again, that would maybe come to California and send their money back home, or South Asians working in the Middle East. This is, expat working is a big, big part of the global economy. And all of these people are not happy with how they have to send the money back home, because so much of it gets taken by these services that turn it from one currency into another. And it's just a very inefficient process. Crypto just smooths it out. Already, I'm talking now, and this was back in March, it may be more now, 15% of all international remissions is actually being sent in cryptocurrency. They're already doing it. These people might be basic laborers, but they're a lot smarter than a lot of people give them credit for. And they are learning very quickly. It is cheaper and faster for me to use this than to go through the traditional routes. And there is another reason why a fellow like Carlos would rather deal in cryptocurrency than local fiat. Because you see, I said Carlos was from South America, or, south of the border. We're going to say that Carlos is from Venezuela. All right. And if he uses Bitcoin, this guy can't touch his money. And because no banks are involved, and Bitcoin is effectively anonymous if you want it to be, these guys can't know anything about the finances of the citizens that they rule over. They cannot know who owns what. They do not know who they are sending it to. They can't know how much they have. Carlos cannot have his money seized, tracked, taken, devalued through inflation. It is cryptocurrency. These players have no rule over his money. And if you don't think that matters to folks in Venezuela, folks, it does. Okay, it absolutely does. And while we're on the topic, this guy can't know anything either. Okay. Right now, the IRS is more than a little bit worried about cryptocurrency. The federal government of the United States doesn't even know how to classify this stuff, much less make sure people pay taxes on it, et cetera. Now, obviously, I do believe that we all need to pay our taxes. I certainly wouldn't advise anybody to, break the law in that regard. But the reality is, this is incredibly difficult to audit. And yes, if you earn cryptocurrency, if you earn anything of value, you do have to pay taxes on it. You don't just pay taxes on dollars. You pay, if you receive gold as payment for something, you do have to pay income tax on that gold or any other asset. And so what exactly is this, right? It clearly has value at this point, but it's just really difficult for the IRS to wrap its head around how to deal with it. And of course, as a matter of fact, right now, the IRS and the SEC, the Security Exchange Commission, actually have two different definitions of what cryptocurrency is. They can't even agree. And, what's going to happen? Okay. I mean, what are they going to do when this is not a fringe activity? What's going to happen when this is something that is extremely common? And we know that that is happening. We know that that's on its way, and we're not even done. Because remember, cryptocurrency doesn't go through banks. It doesn't go through any central entities. And so these guys, what's the point, right? Visa, MasterCard, right now, we have to keep in mind, they take a 2 to 3% merchant fee every single time you use them. The advent of debit cards was the mother of all gravy trains for Visa and MasterCard, because 90% by now, just in case you know, 90% of all transactions are done through the Visa or MasterCard network, because we use our debit cards for everything now. And every single time they take that fee. And we don't see it because we don't pay it. The merchant pays it. But it's like we're using Western Union every single time we use our card. Your crypto wallet can replace your debit card. I can use my crypto wallet to pay for something. The merchant can accept it. I have gone completely around These guys, you don't need a bank account. Swiss bank's on your phone. And so it's not just central banks and Federal Reserves and dare I say, dictators that are worried about this, but also the banking industry, the legacy finance industry does not know how to handle this, because the whole point of cryptocurrency is to sort of get around having to work with these guys. So it's a big one, and it's a challenge for them. In other words, borderless, anonymous, instant, decentralized digital currency is poised to revolutionize the entire global economic system. That's it. That's the answer right there. Credit card companies, traditional banks, money transfer companies, these are just a few sectors that are in the crosshairs of this. And if you really think about it, I'm sure you have by this point, there's even a real chance that nation state currency itself will become irrelevant. Why do I need to use dollars, euros, yens, pesos, bolivars, whatever, when I can do all of my business in crypto? And so that's certainly something that a lot of people are thinking about now. And I'm sure you're skeptical, right? Plenty of people are going to be skeptical. Plenty of people are thinking, you're talking about a gigantic revolution here. Well, remember this? I do. And these guys, the record companies, can certainly tell you how one day things are very secure and then the next day the sky is falling. Okay. Napster decentralized media distribution. And it went from a centralized system where there were a handful of record companies that controlled the distribution to anybody can trade music with anybody anywhere. And we all know what happened next. And we're just getting started. We're just getting started. You didn't think Bitcoin was the only blockchain platform, did you? You didn't think we were just talking about Bitcoin. There are a lot more, many more, and some of them are substantially, significantly more advanced than Bitcoin. They have some really amazing features to them that aren't just talking about changing currency, okay, changing the way the world functions on many different levels. There's even a huge debate over whether or not Bitcoin will remain number one. And that's a very valid argument, because technically speaking, Bitcoin is in fact quite primitive. It's version 1. And let's face it, version 1 usually isn't the version that sticks, right? The Model T was nowhere near the first automobile, right? Google was not the first search engine, right? Apple did not create the first PC. So will Bitcoin actually remain top dog? Boy, it's a debate, and it's worth noting when I say some are better, Nano and IOTA don't even have fees. Okay, Nano is so advanced, I can send a Nano anywhere on the planet and it will arrive there in less than half a second, fully confirmed, and there are 0 fees. I send 1 Nano, you get 1 Nano, plus the entire Nano network can be run on 1 windmill. Now remember, think about all the electricity that is being used for the Bitcoin network. 1 windmill can control the entire Nano network. There's other advantages of it too. So will Bitcoin be what folks like Carlos or whoever use? Let's think about that for a minute while we talk about some other stuff. You see, blockchain technology can be applied to a lot more than money. It is 100% secure, decentralized data management. That's really what it gets down to. And the point there is trust. You see, trust sounds like a happy word, right? I trust you, you trust me. The world is built on trust. I don't know that that's the best way for the world to operate. Trust is actually a huge challenge in how the world works. With blockchain, I don't have to trust, okay? If the data that I'm looking at is on a blockchain, I don't have to trust anybody that it is accurate. And this opens the door to just a vastly more efficient world. Because trust causes a lot of problems. For example, I was at the grocery store earlier tonight, bought some produce. We all do it. And we trust that the produce in the grocery store has been handled properly, right? It looks clean. It looks nice. I know it came from a farm somewhere. Carlos probably picked it, right? But we can't be certain, right? Salmonella is no fun. And we all, see on the news every once in a while, a nasty bacteria broke out in the lettuce crop or something. And the truth is, maybe it was mishandled somewhere. We just have to trust that all of the different handlers have done it properly. Well, how about we have temperature sensors in a refrigerated truck that uploads temperature data to a blockchain all along the supply chain. And so any lack of refrigeration, if the produce gets above a certain temperature, immutably recorded on a blockchain. So we know for a fact whether or not our produce was kept at a certain temperature. This is already in place. A blockchain platform known as VeChain is doing it. It has been deployed by Walmart. It's not in the testing stage. They're actually using it now. They're putting more and more products. It's Walmart China. It's not Walmart United States. But it has been a remarkable success. And every month they seem to be putting more and more of their products on there. And this is a real problem in China. You know, in the United States, it's an issue, but in China, boy, they don't know where their food comes from. And that's a big issue. But there you go. I don't have to trust. I know for a fact where my produce has been. Some products have to be kept extremely cold. And now we're talking about trust, if anyone's been following the news, right? I want to know for sure whether or not that vaccine was kept at the negative 94 degrees. Now, it's not being used for a blockchain, but this is the ideal use case for it, because if that temperature data were uploaded along the blockchain from the time it left Pfizer all the way to the pharmacy, we would know for a fact whether or not the vaccine was kept at the right temperature, because blockchain data is guaranteed to be authentic. If you buy a bottle of wine, you have to trust that it's authentic. And you probably know wine fraud's a big deal. Okay, there's an awful lot of fake wine going around out there. You might not know this, but 50% of all valuable wine in China is actually counterfeit. 50%. It's an astronomical number. And I'm not talking about the real expensive stuff. That's counterfeit too. But even the sort of moderately priced wine that ordinary consumers would buy, the truth is, you go to a wine store, you do not know. And the Chinese counterfeiters are really, really good at making the fake stuff look real. Well, there's tags now, and they are put on the bottle of wine at the vineyard. These tags follow all along the supply chain, scanned. Of course, this is another VeChain use case. And so 1,000 bottles of wine got the NFC tag, 1,000 bottles of wine showed up at the stores. You cannot fake it. You cannot come up with fake data on the blockchain. Several dozen wineries have already signed up with VeChain on this. They have met tremendous success. I think I heard a report that one of them has actually seen sales increase by something like 20%, because the consumers buying it actually know for a fact that it's authentic. And so making the choice, it makes it more appealing. I don't have to trust anymore. I know that bottle of wine is authentic. Sustainable, fair trade coffee, right? You don't know, right? Who really knows? I mean, you've seen the advertisements, right? You know, it's sustainably grown in some mountain forest somewhere, and all the beans, were handpicked by liberal arts graduates, right? You get the idea. It's Maxwell House, folks. They put it in the bag, double the price. With a blockchain, you know exactly where that coffee came from, and you can trace it all the way back, heck, to the acre of land that the beans were picked on, and you could even take the data in terms of the rainfall and the alkalinity of the soil and things like that, if that data were put on a blockchain. It's absolutely remarkable. Blockchain can prevent counterfeit pharmaceuticals, absolutely endemic problem around the world. Blockchain can be used to create a provable trail to minerals around the world. And we all know that's a real problem, where rare earth and things like that come from. We have no idea where a lot of this stuff comes from. But if you put that data on a blockchain, we know exactly where the source is. Really, really cool. No trust is needed. When the COVID-19 crisis hit, as we know, an awful lot of these fake KN95 masks showed up. And sure enough, VeChain was there with a solution. The company actually was called Tricor. And sure enough, fake versions of their masks started showing up everywhere, and they didn't want that. And we know that healthcare workers don't want that either. They can't be playing Sherlock Holmes trying to figure out if their masks are real. And so they are now putting these NFC or these QR codes on the boxes of their N95 masks. And so, this is an authentic mask if it has a QR code from the factory all the way to your facility. It can be traced, and it cannot be forged. It cannot be counterfeited. No QR code. You're not looking at an authentic mask, and the fakers can't fake this. Can't be done. Really remarkable. Here's an example of of if you were scanning it with the VeChain protocol. You've got the app on your phone. You scan the item, and you actually can get a map with a complete story of where it came from. This is for example, a salmon example, and it shows you exactly where the salmon came from. It shows you exactly the route. You could check the time. You could check the temperatures if those sensors were installed. Everything about that salmon would be known. And once again, cannot be counterfeited. It cannot be fake data. Really neat. And I'm not necessarily just cheerleading VeChain. I just happen to know more about it, and I have these examples. There are plenty of others. Don't get me wrong. How about these guys, right? We could put sensors. There's not a single person that trusts the companies, factories that have the big smokestacks. And now we can upload pollution data to a blockchain, can't be manipulated. We don't have to trust these guys to report their emissions. We know, right? Farmers have a real problem in underdeveloped countries because they will buy land titles, and then a new dictator comes along or something like that, and he goes in and he changes all of the records and starts giving land to all of his cronies. It's a big problem in parts of the world. But if that data is on a blockchain, I bought that title. I know that title is mine. Nobody can come in and change it. You want to go out and buy a used car? Well, you got to trust this guy. And we know nobody does. 40% of all cars in the Eurozone have tampered odometers. As a matter of fact, 1.6 million cars in the United States are on the road with tampered odometers, and 10,000 of those are in Mississippi. But a platform called IOTA is able to change this. Other blockchains could too, because blockchain data from your car can make sure that you can't change the mileage. You can't plug into the car's computer and hack into it. The blockchain data can't be manipulated. As a matter of fact, the IOTA Foundation has teamed up with Jaguar and Land Rover, and they're going to be putting IOTA wallets into new models. And this is going to do a lot more than just record odometer data. It will keep records of maintenance, and even go farther than that, because there's a crypto wallet in the car itself. And of course, IOTA has no fees. It's completely feeless. You can actually get paid in IOTA if you allow your car to report things like weather and traffic data, which would be pretty darn slick. And then you could use your car's IOTA wallet to pay parking fees, parking tickets, or things like that. Several cities have partnered with the IOTA Foundation, waste management utilities, tracking all of this data on a blockchain to make it much more efficient. And it's working extremely well. The more these cities use it. The Taipei City Hall, for example, has smart trash cans, which actually can report over the IOTA Tangle when they need to be filled and when they need to be emptied. And this can substantially reduce the amount of time that's spent emptying waste baskets. And if you think, okay, City Hall waste baskets, apply that to an entire city. And all of a sudden, trash collection in the city can become substantially more efficient, because trucks don't have to go where the trash doesn't need to be changed. The IOTA protocol is so massive. This is just a small example. There's so much that's going on with it. I couldn't give one presentation on it. Smart grids, where solar panels on your house and the batteries in your electric car interact with the grid, and the solar panels, you can get paid for helping the grid. The decentralized electricity network, which we've all heard about, can actually be made possible with IOTA, and there's people that are working on that right now. So pretty cool. Other companies working with the IOTA Foundation, these probably look familiar to you. These are just a handful, by the way, and they're all working with them to various degrees, because this is such a revolutionary concept and it works. Still very much under development, but the concept is clearly there. Okay, let's go back to Carlos. Okay, let's go back to our buddy there. He gets a few $100 and he sends it back home, and that's very good for him. But folks, most people don't even know how big cross-border transfers really are. Every single day, $5 trillion are sent across borders across the world. Okay, we're talking dollars to euros, pesos to euros, euros to yen. That is a real number, and the reason is because this isn't about expat workers. This is about big corporations. Big giant United States companies, for example, have to pay payroll in other countries, and that's huge amounts of money. It's absolutely gigantic. Currently, the network that sends most of it is known as the SWIFT network. It's a computerized network put together in 1972. It works like it was put together in 1872. That's why it would take days to send money across borders. If you wanted to send money to Europe, for example, honest to goodness, you would think I could just go down to the bank and boom. Actually, that's not true. It could take up to a week because the SWIFT network has to do so much to make sure the money goes and gets converted and all of that. And that ain't going to be around for long. There is a protocol called Ripple, and it is specifically designed to smooth cross-border transfers. That's what Ripple wants to do. Now, it's a little complicated. VeChain, for example, is not structured like Bitcoin. Ripple isn't either. Ripple is a company, and the token they use called XRP is actually separate. So the token is decentralized-ish, but the company is there to do their thing. And Ripple has already partnered with over 300 banks to do cross-border transfers. That's what they want to do. They want to take dollars and send it to a country like Mexico and make that conversion much, much, much faster than the SWIFT network. Already 7.5% of all currency that moves from the USA to Mexico goes through Ripple. And this, again, was accurate earlier this year. I don't know what it is now. And more money goes through Ripple than PayPal already right now. And again, it's very simple. Again, we're maybe talking about Mexico here. We got a big company. They've got factories in Mexico. They go to their bank. The dollars buy the Ripple goes across the border, the Ripple then buys the pesos, and the Mexican workers can be paid. So that's a fiat case with cryptocurrency as the intermediary. And it is incredibly fast, pretty much feeless. You could send millions of dollars for the equivalent of maybe a nickel, ridiculously secure because it's on a blockchain. And remember, nobody controls the Ripple crypto. It is decentralized. Ripple's a company, but the cryptocurrency is a separate entity. Really neat. You could program money with blockchain. For example, we could create what's called a smart contract. Let's say our friend here wants to buy some land and the seller wants to sell him some land. Well, you could actually program through one blockchain protocol called Ethereum to automate the process. When he sends the money, the title, both are on the blockchain, the swap takes place. There is no escrow involved. There is no middleman like a closing agent involved. Obviously, he is guaranteed to get an authentic title. The owner is guaranteed to get authentic money, permanently recorded. Some dictator can't come in and take it away later on. It's remarkable. And again, this was originally given to educators. We could do the same thing with a diploma. A student finishes the requirements, the college awards the degree. The smart contract makes sure that your college record is always and immutably recorded on a blockchain. And there you go. Can't be forged, can't be lost, can't be altered. Instead of it being wine that we're authenticating a college diploma. And a lot of Americans might say, well, yeah, that sounds great, but I don't have a problem with my college transcript, right? I can contact my university. They'll send my college transcript anywhere. Everybody knows my university is the real thing. Everybody can trust it. But of course, we have to understand much of the world just doesn't work this way. There's enormous amounts of academic fraud, mishandling of academic records. You know, the University of who knows where I have no idea if those records are accurate or if they're going to be held properly, et cetera, et cetera. Today, we have to trust that they are. And unfortunately, in much of the world, that's just simply not possible. So blockchain really changes that. And since I'm talking about Ethereum, it is the number 2 blockchain behind Bitcoin. Ethereum is currently worth about $65 billion. That's the market cap. Ethereum was developed by this guy. And if you want to feel inadequate, just recognize that this guy started Ethereum. Pretty darn cool for him, if you ask me. But it's a good example of the fact that Bitcoin is not anywhere close to the only thing going on in the blockchain space. And the more you study it, the more you realize it's actually pretty much first generation. As a matter of fact, even Ethereum has challengers. VeChain, as I mentioned earlier, is going after Ethereum because VeChain, the people behind VeChain seem to think that it works better. And all of this is still very much in development. Ethereum just launched a major upgrade to their protocol. But like I said, Ethereum is itself decentralized. There are nodes on Ethereum. Anybody can send it. Anybody can use it. Nobody is controlling it in that regard. And this is probably something that someone would think, yeah, this all sounds really cool. This all sounds really neat. Obviously, this is a game changer, but you still haven't convinced me that cryptocurrency is worth actual money. Where does the value come from? I know that a dollar has value. I know that a euro has value. Well, don't be so sure. Dollars aren't backed by anything either. Okay, they're not. This is tremendously surprising news to most people that learn it. But the truth of the matter is dollars are printed by the Federal Reserve. Dollars have not been backed by gold since the early 1970s. There was a time where you could take $1 and you could exchange it for $1 worth of gold. Those days are long gone. There is nothing backing the US dollar. The Federal Reserve just simply prints them and we spend them, and everybody agrees that a dollar is actually worth something, and that's what gives it its value. Now, the good news with the dollar is the fact that there's only so many of them. And the fact that there is a limited supply of dollars means that they do hold their value in that regard. Every central currency works this way. There's a limited supply, and that actually prevents inflation from taking over and them becoming worthless. But remember, Carlos, he isn't American. He doesn't deal with dollars. He deals with bolivars, which is the Venezuelan currency. And once again, guys like this will print off a bazillion of them and completely devalue the currency. Venezuelan inflation is up 54 million% in the last 3 years. That is a real number. And so if you live in one of these countries, you just simply cannot trust your central bank. Bitcoin can't be done. You can't print more Bitcoin. The amount of increase is algorithmically set and it will not change. 6.25 every 10 minutes. And in 4 years, that's going to be cut in half and in half again 4 years later and so on. Cryptocurrency operates outside the government realm. Guys like this can't manipulate it. So that means something. And so we'll have to say, well, I'm just glad I'm not Venezuelan, right? I'm glad I live in the United States because I can trust that the dollar, it's a hard currency, right? The Federal Reserve would never overprint dollars, right, and devalue them. Well, remember the 70s? I do. And that's exactly what they did, starting with Richard Nixon. He was looking at a potential recession, potential unemployment, and he could print a bunch of dollars and keep unemployment low, but inflation up, and that's what he decided to do. And so the Federal Reserve in the early 70s, after we got off the gold standard, started printing lots and lots of dollars, and that's why we had inflation in the 70s. And in 2008, we bailed out the banks. We gave them $1.5 trillion. Well, guess what, folks? It was just printed out of thin air. Okay, $1.5 trillion more was run off by the Federal Reserve and then turned around and given to the banks. And that's what Satoshi was so upset about, because what that does is devalue all the dollars that people like us hold. And, manipulating my money is something I'm not too thrilled about. The US dollar is considered a hard currency. We've heard that before because the Federal Reserve is trusted not to do like they do in Venezuela, not to do what Nicolas Maduro does. But the truth is that trust has been violated. And maybe we should keep in mind, with Bitcoin, you don't have to trust the central bank. Quick alert, time for a fun fact, folks. 20% of all dollars that have ever existed were printed in 2020. So if you don't think that inflation is around the corner, I'm here to tell you it is. And that is partly why a lot of people are buying Bitcoin right now. The Federal Reserve wanted to come up with a lot of money to pass out, and so turned on the printers. Dollars are valuable because we trust the Federal Reserve. Been violated. Euros are valuable because we trust the European Central Bank. That's been violated too, if you don't remember the Greek crisis. I don't need to tell you about Venezuela. We trust the Venezuelan Central Bank. Hasn't turned out too well. Bitcoin is valuable because trust is placed in the cryptography. Trust is placed in the fact that nobody is going to hack it and print off more. It will remain a fixed supply no matter what. Bitcoin makes sense to somebody like Carlos because he's sick and tired of the Venezuelan central government destroying the currency. And this has happened in Argentina, and this has happened in Brazil, and this has happened in Zimbabwe, and this has happened in one country after another. And these people are just flat out sick of it, and they don't want that to happen anymore. So now they're deciding we're going to put our trust in something else that cannot be manipulated. So does cryptocurrency have no value? Well, does a platform that can eliminate fake medicine have value to pharma, right? Does a platform that can eliminate odometer fraud have value to automakers? What about securely tracking food transport? Does that have value to Walmart? I'm going to say it does. And I have to note, blockchain platforms have to have a cryptocurrency behind them in order to pull this off. They have to. It's the structure of it. There has to be some sort of underlying asset that can't be manipulated. And that's kind of the crux of it. Cryptocurrency has created an entirely new asset class. It isn't like dollars. It isn't like gold. It isn't like stocks and bonds. It is sort of a mix of all of these. It is borderless. It is decentralized. It is new. And as I mentioned earlier, the legacy financial system and everybody else doesn't really know what to do with it. I'll put it another way. We got a dinosaur killer headed right toward the central banks. We do. And they know. Trust me on this one. They know. They just don't know what to do about it. Cryptocurrency is poised to do to central banks what Napster did to the recording industry. It is an absolute existential threat. The crypto market is currently worth about $530 billion. That is 0.38% of the global GDP. What are they going to do when it's worth 1%, 2%, 3%, 4% of the global GDP? Well, you're probably thinking, well, I know exactly what they're going to do. The central banks are not going to allow their control over nation state currency get wiped out. What they're going to do is make it illegal. They're going to say, no, this stuff is illegal. You cannot use it. Well, good luck with that. Are you going to make computer code illegal? You're going to shut down the entire internet? Is that what you're going to do to stop crypto? And it's also worth noting that blockchain offers tremendous benefits. Again, whenever we start saying, let's make cryptocurrency illegal, let's shut down the ability to track food, right? Let's shut down the ability to eliminate counterfeit pharmaceuticals. Let's stop the ability to move assets across borders considerably faster and quicker than currently exists. It's just simply an unrealistic proposition. This is a huge step forward in how the world does business. And so it's not going anywhere. And you can't shut it down. You can't say, in a free country at least, it's illegal for me to give you money for what I consider to be an asset. Can't be done. It's just not going to happen. The only realistic way they could even try would be to create some sort of dictatorship, which we know isn't going to happen. Napster actually was never illegal. It was the file trading that was illegal, and there is a legal difference behind that. And when they shut Napster down, what happened? Kazaa, LimeWire, BitTorrent, new versions just popped right back up, and people kept using them. Only now we're not talking about trading music files in an industry that's worth $3 or $4 billion. Let's face it, that's peanuts. We're talking about revolutionizing the entire global economy on what is effectively more or less the same concept. Gargantuan, folks. Absolutely gargantuan. There are attempts to ban crypto. Don't think that it hasn't already happened. Yes, different countries have taken different approaches already. Probably the most notable approach was India. India has a huge black market already. Lots and lots and lots of people do business in cash in India, which means that all of that business goes under the table. And crypto only makes that much, much easier. And so the Indian Reserve Bank, the Indian Central Bank, made it illegal for banks to interact with crypto exchanges and crypto businesses. They just said it's illegal. It didn't stop crypto at all in India. And earlier this year, the Indian Supreme Court ruled that law is unconstitutional anyway. So it didn't work. And also worth noting, if we say banks can't involve themselves with cryptocurrency, that means that the Indian banks can't use Ripple. They can't use blockchain to move money across borders. And so automatically all the big Indian banks said, hold on a minute, I understand that this is a threat to us, but it also makes our current business a lot more efficient. You can't tell Indian banks that they can't do that. And so it was just a mess from the very beginning. And like I said, it failed, and they will continue to fail. I'm not saying they're not going to try. Yes, they're going to take gigantic swipes at this. Not going to work, right? We all knew that once Napster was out of the bag, it wasn't ever going away. This isn't either. So how about the next point that comes to people's mind? Okay, I get it. It's not going away, and it really is efficient and effective and revolutionary in a positive way. So what's going to happen is countries are just going to come in and they're going to create their own versions. The U.S. Federal Reserve will create its own blockchain-based asset because let's face it, I would rather use a blockchain dollar than a Bitcoin, right? I mean, I trust the dollar. Well, let's take a look at a digital blockchain dollar, shall we? Let's look at what the Federal Reserve's version would have to look like. Ask a few questions. Cryptocurrency is completely borderless. It doesn't care what borders are. It flies across them at the speed of the internet. Could a crypto dollar or crypto euro work on a global stage? If the Federal Reserve were to release a crypto dollar, what's going to happen when people want to send it back home to their families? Will it work across the world? Is Vladimir Putin going to be cool with people using crypto dollars in Russia, right? I think we've already got a really serious problem because fiat central bank currency is controlled within the borders of a country. Once you start taking those borders away, it just is problematic. So when we're dealing with international versus national, how could a crypto dollar, crypto euro, crypto yen even work? How about a crypto dollar be completely immutable? No more can be created or eliminated. Remember, when the Federal Reserve wants more money to bail out the banks, it just prints off $1 trillion or so. Well, remember, with a permissionless crypto, that can't be done. You can't print more Bitcoin at will. It is set. The amount is fixed. Well, forget it. The Fed is not going to create a digital dollar that it can't manipulate the supply of. It's a centrally controlled currency. How about anyone sending a crypto dollar anywhere across the globe? You want to send some money to Iran? You're going to be able to send a crypto dollar there, right? I think we know the answer to that question, right? So a central bank digital currency has already got a big problem when people want to send it to places that maybe that central bank doesn't want it to be sent. How about this one? Anonymous to hold, no name associated with any of the accounts, more or less impossible to audit, right? Come on, folks, pigs are going to fly before that happens. Okay, there's not a chance that a central bank digital currency will ever be made to where it can't realistically be audited. And that's what cryptocurrency is. So, these made these obsolete. Okay, that's the analogy here. Okay, and they just did. And there was no way it was going to change. Now, understand when the automobile came out and the horse people, the horse breeders realized the threat that automobiles were, the horse breeders came out with their own version of an automobile to compete. And here it is. And as we can see, it was great, right? See, this is just as good. Watch out, Henry Ford. This is what a crypto dollar would look like. Okay, it would be a cryptocurrency where everything that makes crypto useful is stripped away. Okay, this is the car, this is the horse. Okay, central bank currency like dollars, like euros, like yen simply cannot be converted into cryptocurrencies. It is a new asset class. It is a new asset class. So here's another point that a lot of people often think, and I don't, blame them for thinking this. Yeah, this is cool. This is neat. So what's going to happen is the big tech companies will come in and they'll create their own, right? IBM, I don't know, Oracle, whatever, these big companies that deal in the computer space, they'll create their own blockchains and IBM will take it over. Well, you got to keep in mind what makes cryptocurrency work is the fact that the nodes are independent. The nodes are not centrally controlled. So if IBM were to create its own blockchain, but IBM had control over all the nodes, it could rewrite the ledger. We're back to having to trust IBM, aren't we? Right? We still now have to trust. And the whole point is I don't have to trust anymore. So no, okay, it's not going to work. Now, IBM, using it as an example, has created a blockchain, and they're working with it, and it kind of works. Somebody requested unmute, and I'll be happy. I'm sorry if that might have been a while back. Who requested the unmute? Let me open up the chat. Yeah, I wish I could have bought Bitcoin when it was lower. Yeah. Okay. Who wants to ask a question? I think somebody had a question. Okay, I tell you what, I'll just unmute whenever it's done. Okay, is that all right? Thumbs up? Okay, cool. Now, that's not to say that the big tech companies aren't getting involved in it. IBM, for example, is actually quite interested in the whole cross-border payment thing. And they've actually teamed up with a platform called Stellar. I haven't heard news on this in a little while, but they're going to get into the cross-border transfer themselves. They want to compete with Ripple. $5 trillion a day, folks. Even a tiny piece of that's a lot of money. The fees don't have to be very high for that to be profitable. Now, you don't have to use a Bitcoin ATM. I mentioned that as sort of an easy way for someone who just gets cash or something to get it. But you can go to many different exchanges, link them to your bank, buy cryptocurrency. There's so many of them. They all operate kind of by their own protocols. Poloniex, for example, is now owned by Goldman Sachs. If you're wondering, is this becoming big? This one here, Binance, made $1 billion in 2019, and these others have made a lot too. So it's very possible to buy cryptocurrency. A lot of them now are being brought under regulatory control, and so you have to identify yourself, know your customer rules are now applying, and how well that's going to work is anybody's guess. So to conclude, an incredibly powerful global revolution in how we live is coming. Every aspect of modern life is going to be changed by blockchain. Economics, government, industry, environment, mobility, communication, you name it. The list just simply goes on. And if you're skeptical, reading Rainbow, you don't just have to take my word for it. I've got all kinds of articles that you can pull up. Some of these are a few months old, but they're just all discussing how revolutionary this is and all the different sectors that blockchain technology is being applied to. When I was writing for Bitcoinist and for cryptonews.net, I've written somewhere in the 350 article range, different news articles of different types. And the whole reason I really started writing was that so I could really learn about this more. And the more I read about it, the more I realize this is going to be just absolutely massive. This is a revolution in every sense of the word. So there we have it. That's the presentation. Oh yeah, the IRS is definitely interested. So there we go. I will unmute, and if anybody has any questions, this is blockchain transaction volume. This is a pretty cool video. I can play this in a little bit, and it's somebody sending a nano all the way around the world through multiple different stops, completely feeless in just a couple of minutes. It's a really remarkable video. But what I'm going to do is unmute everyone, and then we can maybe field some questions. Sound good? Okay, so you can unmute yourself and fire away. If anybody has any. Yes.
How do you invest or buy VeChain or Bitcoin or any of these others?
How do you buy it? Absolutely, right. That's the best question, right? That's the number one question. There's obviously different routes, but for the most part, what it does is it involves taking fiat, taking dollars, going to an exchange, exchanging it for a common cryptocurrency like Bitcoin or Ethereum, which tend to be the most popular, which are definitely most popular. And then you move it over to one of sort of the different types of exchanges. And then you can exchange that Bitcoin for VeChain. And then you move the VeChain into your VeChain wallet on your phone, and that's how you do it. So like one exchange that works pretty well is one called Bitstamp. And you sign up for a Bitstamp account, right? You just put in your information, you go through the verification process, you give them your bank information, and then you can just go in and they'll pull money out of your bank, convert it into Bitcoin, send it to another exchange that exchanges VeChain, and you got your VeChain. It's a few steps, but it's very doable. And it's getting easier. It's getting easier. And you have to know which exchanges carry which cryptos.
Do you ever see like Bitcoin buying VeChain or something like that occurring?
Well, Bitcoin isn't a company.
It's not.
So remember, it's not. No, there is no Bitcoin company. You see, so remember, there are no Bitcoin people. It's a protocol, right? So no, right? No, you can buy VeChain with Bitcoins. Obviously, lots of people do. But remember, these are not institutions. Now, with that in mind, many of these have foundations behind them because every cryptocurrency is still a work in progress. And so they generally will have a team that is helping to develop them. And for the most part, people within their sort of sandbox tend to cooperate with their developments, not Bitcoin. For example, VeChain has the VeChain Foundation, and they are developing VeChain. And VeChain's a little bit different because VeChain, there is a VeChain Foundation that really is kind of centrally controlled, and it always will be to some extent. It's quasi-decentralized, kind of like Ripple. But these others, Stellar, Cardano, the foundations are developing them. But at some point, they're going to be done, and it's just going to be a protocol out there in the world that anyone can use, right? Who owns email, right? Who are the email people? Well, nobody, right? It's just the protocols that we run. Okay. Any other questions?
What's your favorite?
Oh,
What's my favorite? I don't have a single favorite. There is a rather contentious debate among people that follow this. There are those that are what we call Bitcoin maximalists, and they believe that Bitcoin is always going to remain top dog and that it will always remain the most valuable. And then there's those that think that Bitcoin will probably someday fall and these others will become more significant. I tend to fall into that camp. My opinion is that at some point Bitcoin simply will not be as significant. It just won't be because it can't keep up technically. And so in that spirit, I obviously like VeChain, you know that. I obviously like Nano. I obviously like IOTA. I'm also a fan of Stellar. I think that that's the foundation that seems to really be doing a good job. So the first three, VeChain, IOTA, Nano, pick an order. I tend to think that those are really worthwhile. But there's plenty of others. There's one called Chainlink, which is working on what are called oracles, getting data into the blockchain that's good. Needless to say, Ethereum. Ethereum is absolutely phenomenal. There's one called Cardano. There's just a lot of good ones out there. So I'm not going to say I'm absolutely right. I could be very wrong. But there aren't many critics of the ones I'm talking about. When it really gets down to it, they're really, really well done.
and so the technology that's written for these chains,
Yes.
they have different functions. And so that's what makes it valuable.
Well, it's valuable because number one, they do have use cases, right? Tracking data across a supply chain is a valuable service. That's something that people are willing to pay for. And they have a limited supply, right? There are only going to be 21 million Bitcoin. That's it. The number of VeChain is 86 billion. That's it. There will never be more than 86 billion VET tokens. And currently the VET token is trading for about 1.5 cents a piece. Okay. And so, but buy them now if you want them, because the VeChain Foundation or anyone else will never create any more. They just simply can't. And so the VET token is used to use the VeChain network. And I won't get into the specifics of it, but that's kind of the idea. It is a cryptographically limited supply. Nano has exactly 133 million. That's it. That's all that will ever exist. So if you want to buy Nano, you can't go out and create any more, et cetera, et cetera.
And so you can trade within Nano, but you can also go to an exchange and exchange Nano for VTech if
Yes.
another person has VTech.
Bingo. I could send you Nano. You could send me Nano. I could send Nano across the globe. Okay. Again, it's borderless. So Nano can be sent anywhere. But let's say I don't want my Nano anymore. Let's say I want to trade my Nano for VeChain, or I want to just cash my Nano out and take dollars, right? The exchanges exist for that. So I could put my Nano on an exchange. I could then trade it for another cryptocurrency or trade it for dollars or whatever. Yes. And you have to find the right exchange that will have the trading pair, right? Like, for example, if I wanted to trade Nanos for VeChain, there is no exchange out there that will do an exact swap like that. You may want to sell me VeChain, I may want to sell you Nano, but that exact operation is not available. So what we would do is we would go to an exchange, I buy Bitcoin, you buy Bitcoin, then we turn around and buy whatever we want with it, that sort of thing. Trading pairs.
And when these exchanges get full, so if Nano reaches its max and I want to pay you in Nano, then we definitely have to go to the exchange.
When you say Nano reaches its max, what do you mean?
Like you said, Bitcoin is only going to have 21,000 or whatever.
21 million.
So if I have Bitcoin and you don't, and there's no more left, then I'd have to go to an exchange and pay you in something else.
Exactly. Now, Nano, again, each protocol is definitely structured different. With Nano, since we're using that as the example, the 133 million have already been mined. They've already been created. So unlike Bitcoin, which creates 6.25 every 10 minutes, there are no more Nano being created. Their consensus mechanism is entirely different. And so that's it. There's 133 million. They are out there in the different Nano wallets. If you want some, you got to find someone to sell it to you. And that's where the exchanges come in.
Okay.
And if you were to sell your Nano, obviously you and I could meet on the street, right? And we could just sell it that way, right? You could give me the money and I could transfer you the Nano. But on an exchange, what happens is I would have to upload my Nano to that exchange, and then you would buy it on the exchange and download it back to your Nano wallet.
Right. And is there a line of people buying it, or you can specifically say, okay, I want Trevor to have this Nano. I'm uploading.
Well, if you go to an exchange, it's like any other commodity exchange, like Forex or something like that. Like if you buy stock on the stock exchange, I don't say Kelly Bird gets my Apple stock, right? I just put my Apple stock up for sale, right? And people buy it. It's the exact same. The exchanges operate and look extremely similar to like Forex exchanges or stock exchanges. You've got a bid price, you've got an ask price, you've got the order book, and then eventually people come together and agree on a price.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I could go to one. Maybe I could show you an exchange, and we could actually see one in action if I can figure out how to. Hang on just a second, okay? I'll actually go to an exchange and we can kind of see the trades happening. How about we go to Binance? Give me just a second. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, this is the Binance exchange. And so like we can go into the markets right now, and here are all the trading pairs. So for example, we'll go into the Bitcoin markets. This is XRP and Bitcoin, Ripple and Bitcoin. I talked about Ripple earlier.
Is XRP Ripple?
I'm sorry?
Is XRP Ripple?
XRP is Ripple, yeah. Yeah.
Again,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
A friend of mine told me that XRP is matching like if I own 10 XRP, then they're matching it on the 12th. Have you heard that?
They're not giving you more XRP. There is a fork that's happening in Ripple, but it's a little more, I won't get into airdrops, but yes, there's going to be a point here where if you own XRP on the 12th, you get an airdrop of another token. And supposedly that token will have value. And these are called airdrops, and they happen actually kind of pretty frequently. A lot of times they don't amount to anything, but yes, that's why you can see the value is going up. People are buying it. But here's the order book. Here are people wanting to sell. Here are people wanting to buy. Here are recent trades. And again, you would do the same thing if you were, for example, trading Forex. You can do a limit order, which is you tell them what price you're willing to pay. A market order is I'll pay this price. I'll just buy it right now. I don't care the price, et cetera, et cetera. And if you know how this works, it's not that hard to learn. There you go. But you see, there's other pairs. For example, this is. Let me show you.
That looks very complicated, Trevor.
It looks very complicated. Yeah. Hang on. Let me get out of it. But you can trade it for whatever cryptocurrency you want if they have the pair, if they cover it. So let me find. Let's see if they have. One that would also be worth. A lot of these aren't going anywhere, but some of them are promising. Let's find Ethereum.
What about volatility?
Tremendous volatility. Holy moly, is it volatile.
Yes.
The crypto market is the most volatile market on the planet by any measure.
So how do you essentially, don't you need a stable market for like Bitcoin, or say I'm going to go to Subway, then how do you know my sandwich one day will be $5, in paying, if you're paying it Bitcoin?
Here's Nano Bitcoin. You don't. And that's obviously an issue. Because remember, each of these are currencies, right? They are currencies in their own right. The going logic is that as more and more liquidity moves into these markets, they will become less volatile. What's making them so volatile is the fact that there's just not a lot of money in it. And so $1 million thrown into one of these platforms would just send this price skyrocketing, right? Or $1 million, sold would send the price crashing simply because there's not that much owned. But if you're dealing with multi-billion-dollar markets or more and more and more, the volatility tends to level out. And we're just not there yet. But oh, goodness gracious, is the market volatile. But this is Nano. And yes, it looks very confusing. But just to let you know, if you were to come to this exchange and want to buy Nano, you can set your price here. You can set your sell price there if you wanted to sell it. This is what people are offering to sell it for. This is what people are offering to buy it for. So that's how it works. And yeah, it can be complicated. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
This is not for people. And so the idea that, I just want to buy some, tell me where to click. I'm not so sure that's such a good idea.
You can't do it at Schwab, no?
Not yet. But you see,
Goldman Sachs.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's the thing. Okay. You don't have to, right? You can buy this on your own. You don't have to go through a financial broker. There are now professional institutions getting involved in buying your crypto for you and holding your crypto for you, et cetera, et cetera. You can use them if you want, but you don't have to, right? And you say to yourself, well, sure, I would trust the financial institution until you realize that they take a 10% commission. And then you say, you know what, for 10%, I think maybe I can do it myself, right? One of the key rules that is rule number one, not your keys, not your crypto, meaning nobody holds it but you. Okay, you do not let any other person, institution, or entity hold on to your cryptocurrency. You keep it in your wallet where you know your passwords and your keys, because that's the way it works. This is a highly unregulated market right now. And what a lot of people will do is they'll go to these exchanges and they'll say buy a bunch of Nano, and then they'll just leave the Nano on the exchange. Let the exchange be my wallet, right? Let the exchange hold it. But then what happens if the exchange shuts down, right? And there are stories, let me tell you. So one of the lessons, one of the very clear instructions that people that try to teach about this always emphasize, you always keep your crypto in your wallet. You never keep it somewhere else.
What's the best wallet?
There isn't one, but there's a lot of good ones. Depends on the crypto you want to hold. Nano, for example, has a wallet called Natrium, which works really well. IOTA only really has one wallet that they use, which is created by the IOTA Foundation. It's called Trinity, and they're about to come out with a new one. Bitcoin, there's probably a dozen Bitcoin wallets that hold a lot of other cryptos as well. They don't just hold Bitcoin. A really good one, for example, is Jax. That one tends to get high reviews. One called Atomic Wallet is really good. You want a wallet that's open source, where the source code is completely open and anyone can look at it, so there isn't sneaky stuff put in there. And you want a wallet that is called non-custodial, which means that the private keys, the information about your cryptocurrency, is kept on your device, not anywhere else. And if you're wondering, well, sure, I'd like to keep it on my phone, but what happens if my phone fries, right? What happens if my phone gets bricked? These wallets come with a phrase, a passphrase, what's known as a BIP phrase. And if you can put that phrase into a new version of that wallet, it will bring your crypto back. You see, the crypto is encrypted in a way that you delete the wallet, and as long as you have your information, you can bring it back. And what I've heard in places like Venezuela, what these people will do is they'll get their cryptocurrency and they'll put it in a wallet and they'll memorize the phrase, and then they'll delete the wallet. Because if the police show up or something and say, I'm taking your cryptocurrency, open up your wallet, there's no wallet on their phone. But they know the phrase in their head. So then they can restore it later on.
How about Exodus? That's one I have.
Exodus?
Exodus, yeah, the wallet Exodus.
Oh, Exodus. Yeah, Exodus is a good wallet. Yeah, Exodus is a great wallet. Yeah, Exodus tends to be very highly reviewed. Yeah. I had Exodus wallet once, and I used it, and it gave me a little bit of trouble with a firewall on my computer. One computer, it would get through the firewall, and another computer it wouldn't, and that kind of, I was a little weird with that. But that's probably more of a me thing. But yeah, no, Exodus wallet tends to be very well reviewed.
Okay. And what do you say about like buying USD? I know people will talk about also buy USD when you're buying Coinbase or any of these other US dollars, like USD. Like it's good to invest also in the USD in the process of you doing crypto. Is there anything that about that?
USD is just dollars.
It's just dollars.
What you might be referring to is stable coins. You might be talking about USDT. There are a number of I won't call them cryptocurrencies, digital assets that are called stable coins that have been tied to fiat currency. And so one is called USDT, also known as Tether. And one Tether equals $1 supposedly in a vault somewhere. Now, supposedly is the key word there. And so if you were to go out and buy 1,000 Tether or USDT, in theory, somewhere in a vault is 1,000 actual real dollars that back it up. And people use these largely to trade because I can go on an exchange and that counts as an actual dollar. And then I can change USDT to Bitcoin or USDT to whatever. And a lot of these exchanges, you'll see the USDT mark, you'll see the USDT pair. These are, I don't know that I trust them entirely. I certainly don't trust Tether. The people at Tether have never actually proven that they have the dollars that they're issuing. They've never allowed independent auditors to come in and prove that those dollars exist. Other stable coins have. There's a stable coin that was issued by an exchange called Gemini. And these are the Winklevoss twins. You remember Facebook and the social network? The Winklevi have created a crypto exchange called Gemini. And they have produced their own. And they're on the up and up, really. They work very hard. They have been audited properly. And their stable coin is legit. And there's talk about regulating stable coins, of course. There's actually a bill before Congress right now to force issuers of stable coins. So, for example, prove that they have the currency, et cetera, et cetera. But like I said, stable coins aren't really cryptocurrency. Stable coins are just a digital version of dollars.
Right.
So if I buy 1,000 Tether, it's never going to be worth more than $1,000. It can't be. It is a dollar. It's just a digital version. So why buy one?
Well, would you buy that for insurance about our dollar since this is stable, since it is?
If the dollar crashes, it crashes. It's one digital dollar.
That's true. So why have it? Yeah.
Why have it? Yeah. Now, if you're going to trade on exchange,
but if they had the gold in there or something else that linked to a commodity.
And there have been stable coins that are backed by gold as well. That's true. And now we're getting into a whole new topic called tokenized assets, which I didn't even bring up in this because you could theoretically create a smart contract and tokens around stocks, bonds, precious metals, a bag of whatever, and you could actually trade stocks and bonds in a decentralized way, just like you would trade crypto, which means no more NASDAQ, no more Wall Street. You could buy and sell stuff for you with stocks and bonds. You wouldn't even have a currency. You could have a token that represents Apple stock, and then you could use that token to buy stuff. It really gets into some really crazy territory when we start thinking about where this could all go.
Wow.
And there's actually a couple of platforms that are trying to do just that, trying to create tokenized assets.
Do you think, will the exchanges become regulated and that's how the government will track who is sending and then how they tax?
You know, that's a big one. And you better believe that some governments want to regulate the exchanges. The federal government has really cracked down on exchange activity for exchanges based in the United States. This one we're looking at here called Binance. It was originally based in China, and then China started giving them trouble, so they eventually moved to Malta. And Binance, because of all of the U.S. regulations that the U.S. government was putting on them, and because they want to be legitimate, they actually quit taking U.S. customers, and they created an American version of Binance called Binance US, which meets the American regulations. But see, here's the problem. There's plenty of countries in the world that'll be more than happy to host these exchanges without regulation. Right. Again, who knows where a stand, right, is more than happy for a country, you know, Binance to come in and, boy, you can just trade away there and, you know, they don't care. So it's global. You know, how are you going to stop people from going to those exchanges? Right. Again, I mentioned Binance went to Malta. The people in Malta are more than happy to let Binance do whatever the hell they want. Yeah. So how do you regulate something that's global like that? You're playing whack-a-mole, you know. You force one to start playing by the rules and another one decides to pop up somewhere else. And there's also, by the way, decentralized exchanges coming on board where you're trading crypto and there is no central entity behind that either. So it is actually blockchain based. So there's no way to even regulate it.
And you can trust the exchange.
It's blockchain.
Okay. Yep.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
Now, those have been in development for a while, and a few have been deployed. They're still pretty inefficient, and they don't work all that well, and there's not a lot of liquidity in them, but the technology's there. I mean, the horse is out of the barn on those two. Yeah. So you can understand why I'm so fascinated by it. At least I hope you can.
Yes. I just wonder how they create the stability so then like on a day-to-day basis, if people start using this, like PayPal has it now and people are using it.
PayPal has it now, but PayPal, you see, this is where it gets interesting. Again, remember, not your keys, not your crypto, right? PayPal has to play by the rules. Buy Bitcoin on PayPal, you can't download it. You can't move your PayPal crypto into your wallet. PayPal holds it for you.
Yeah,
so now you have to trust PayPal.
I don't trust PayPal.
Yeah, how many times have people mentioned, PayPal froze my account, right?
Well, they froze my account. Yes, I am familiar.
So now your crypto is being held by PayPal. You trust that?
Yeah. No.
I think I'll keep my crypto in my wallet, right?
Yeah.
There are a number of exchanges that have popped up that they call themselves custodial exchanges, and you buy the crypto, but they don't give it to you. And nope, not going to do that. Okay. But you can understand why people that don't know that much think it's okay, right?
Yeah.
People that don't understand this, hey, PayPal, sure, I have a PayPal account, but PayPal can freeze your account anytime they want, and they do.
They do. It's bad. It's awful.
Yeah. Can't freeze your Bitcoin account.
No.
That's interesting.
Well, I tell you what, if anybody has any more questions, anything like that, y'all are welcome to get in touch with me. Like I said, this is a hobby for me. I enjoy doing it. So I'm more than happy to answer questions, walk anybody through anything. I'm here to help. I really am. There's a particular grandmother who has gotten in on this, and she seems to be enjoying it. And by the way, giving the IOTA as gifts was my idea, in case y'all are wondering. Yeah. And you'll notice all that was given was a IOTA seed, no instructions. You got to look it up and figure it out on your own. That's part of the deal, because you can understand there's too much to know here. I can't just walk you through it, right? Here's your IOTA seed. You figure it out on your own now. You're smart, right? It's a nice little project. But yeah, if anybody has any more questions, anything at all, feel free to get in touch with me. I'm happy.
Thank you.
Right?
Okay. Well, and Trevor, really, thank you so much. We all appreciate your hobby and explaining it to us in such a very interesting way. Thank you. Yeah.
Hey, you bet. Yeah, it's been fun. All right. So just text me, email me, call me, whatever, anytime. All right, y'all.
Right.
Thank you. Good night.
All right. And I think I'm going to put this on YouTube. Okay, I'm gonna download it and I'll put it up on YouTube. So if anybody,
let me send me the link when you do, because I do have a lot of people that wanted to be on here, but Hanukkah first night, then something, a band presentation, other things. So that'd be great. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right,
y'all take care.
Bye, ladies. Bye, Todd.
Bye.